Hey, deserving listeners, 90-Day Fiancé, happily ever after. Let's see what happens and see what comes out of my face.
Kimberly had the birthday yummy last night. It was so great. I think it's one of the reasons why she's just smiling this morning. It was boom, 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 like, oh my God.
I want to talk.
Huh? You want to talk?
Yeah.
Okay, you talk, babe.
I want to talk about the second wife thing. Just you and I, though. I don't. Listen, babe.
Okay, so good. If they really want to make this work, they're probably going to have a lot of conversations about the second wife thing. So I'm glad she's bringing it up. I'm also glad she seems to be coming from a place of calmness, initially anyway. He's resisting, kind of, but we'll see how this goes. And she's also saying, I don't want anyone else there, and that's good. So maybe they had to have some bumps in the road to be able to talk about it, and now they can actually be relaxed and talk about it in an honest and upfront way. Let's see what happens without overreacting.
Don't want an argument. We don't need to argue. I just want to talk.
Okay.
After talking to Usman's friend, KB, it's obvious I still have a lot of questions, and I need to get some answers straight. But every time I bring the second wife topic up to Usman, it's like a sore subject. He like pushes past it, or he doesn't answer the questions fully.
All right, well, that's not good, because I think what that says is that he knows or suspects, strongly suspects, that if she were to know the reality of it, that she would leave, and he is trying to avoid that, which isn't good either subconsciously or consciously. So it's really good that she's trying to approach this in a differentiated manner. She would have, and probably does have, just as much reason to avoid it because she doesn't want to face that, but instead she's facing it. Now, some people might say, well, she should just leave him, but, you know, she's into it. She wants to make this work. I think she has a lot of feelings for him. And so I would say it makes sense that she would really try to make sure before leaving him that something can't be worked out. So let's see what happens.
Questions fully, and I want him to really hear me this time and not just make a joke out of it.
Listen,
This is amazing.
you like
It's
it?
so good, yes.
There's water around here, so.
I love it. I wrote down questions so I can have clarity, and I make sure I don't miss anything, because this is it before we go to Sokoto.
That's great. So she wrote down questions, I think, or inadvertently, but maybe because she knows that once she gets into the conversation, she's going to get triggered, and it's going to be hard for her to remain differentiated and stay calm so that she can stay on task and ask all the right questions. So she wrote them down in advance. That's great.
Who picks her? Like, does your family choose a woman for you?
My family will be in the position to do that. Maybe.
When you have kids, right? Like, what is my role? Would you be, like, upset if I don't want to, like, have involvement with them?
If you want to see them, you can see them. If you don't want to see them, I don't have to blame you. But I feel like there is no how you love mother without loving her son.
Okay, so this is good. She's getting real specific. Do I have to meet your children? Who picks this woman for you? This is a good start. I think that there's a lot more questions there, right? Like, how much time you're going to spend with these other people? Is it possible that you might fall in love with these other women and love them more than me? Does that matter? Also, again, I think from previous episodes, I think for her, she plans on only seeing him only a portion out of the year when she comes to Nigeria. So maybe that's a question, like, could you reserve those 2 months out of the year just for me? Or, you know, I don't know. So this is good start.
If now I say I don't want to see Jamal, you know, like he's not my son, blah, 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 will you be happy?
No.
Good.
I mean, what you said was it was a really good point for me, and it made me see it now. You know what I mean? Like, because I would be upset if you didn't like Jamal.
Okay, yeah, that was a good point. So she's like, do I have to meet your other children? And then he says, well, no, but how would you feel if I didn't want to meet your son? And I thought she was going to get defensive, but she didn't. She actually was agreeing. She's like, well, actually, that's a pretty good point, and maybe I should rethink that. Okay, so maybe there is some flexibility there. Now, as I've been saying from the beginning, I'm not saying she's supposed to agree to bigamy, But if she wants this to work, she should probably ask these questions and also ask herself, where's the line here for me in terms of the deal breaker?
As long as we are going to be husband and wife in future, Kimberly cannot just tell me that I love you and then I didn't love your children. It's not going to be possible. So we just need to understand the reality of it. Definitely, I know that my second wife is going to be from my region.
Oh, yeah, because she's not going to be from America.
No, you don't know.
No,
you don't know.
No, I told you
No,
that.
you don't know.
No, that was it.
No, you don't know. If I have an American lady who lives in America and she's a Hausa by tribe and she can conceive and give me a child, I don't think I should be deprived from that.
Okay, so they have already talked about this detail, about the nationality of the next wife. And the other thing I'd be asking if I were her is there going to be a third or fourth wife? Because we did hear some of that. And now he's saying, well, no, what I would like is this sort of thing. And okay. So let's see how they adjust here.
You're not going to do that. Because if you do it, there's no point in me going to Sokoto. Because that's like a deal breaker for me.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the way she's phrasing it here. I don't know if she's becoming undifferentiated due to the threat of everything, due to the worries of what this is going to entail. But she's saying, you're not going to do that. A better way to phrase that is, well, and then she got to it kind of at the end. She's like, that's a deal breaker for me. A better way to phrase that is, well, I would be threatened by that because of this, this, and this. And I don't think I'd be very happy under those conditions. Now, it's kind of a weird premise. And I think there's a vein of racism in there because she's basically saying, if you marry an American, then I will feel in competition with that person. Whereas if you marry a woman from this region, I will know that I'm not in competition with that person. I mean, that doesn't make a lot of sense, honestly. If he marries someone from his neighborhood, I would imagine that that woman would be much more in alignment with his culture and his ideals and the language and whatnot, and thus he might have more likelihood of falling. I don't know, but so, and she's done this before where she's basically just thought of these other women as essentially just baby factories that should be rejected and just left to, you know, he's just supposed to go over to her house and impregnate her and leave her and the children. I mean, she's been coming from that place, which I don't know. I'm just trying to imagine what say she met a polyamorous fella from the United States and in the United States, and she was like, well, I'm not interested in polyamory, and so, but I am interested in being with you. So that would be analogous to this. She is like, okay, well, these other American women, I want you just to go over there, impregnate them, and leave them, have no contact with the children or her, and I certainly will never talk to them because I don't want to have contact with. I get the premise because for her it's a threat and she doesn't want to get triggered by that. You know, seeing it is different than knowing about it, right? If she just knows he has another wife, that's different than actually witnessing it in front of her, which would be, you know, more triggering for her. But to there's a difference between having a wish, right? Like, well, that's what I would wish. And then you would think you would check in with yourself and say like, well, is that humane, what I'm asking?
And I'm not trying to be controlling. I'm not trying to, but I have a say-so in this too.
Why are you giving me terms and conditions like you're doing a big favor for me in this world?
I came here to have a conversation. I didn't come here for this yelling.
Then why are you doing this?
All I said was that on the phone and on video chats and stuff, you always said that you wouldn't marry anybody from America. That's what you told me. And then when I asked you this little question I wrote down, it's like now that changed. I'm accepting a lot.
Yeah. So we're getting a little bit more detail about the way in which Usman has communicated. And we're also getting the communication from her, the detail from her that he will avoid the questions. And now when they're getting into it and he is seemingly trying to keep the door open to him being able to marry someone from the United States, which almost makes me think that's his preference. Maybe he wants to actually do that. I don't know. And he is, reneging on that. And he's also arguing in a way that is shady. Like, how come? And instead of, yeah, I did say that, or, okay, that's what you want. I don't know. Okay, let's see if I can. It's that kind of smokescreen way of communicating instead of just talking about the issue, and then she's trying to keep on track. She's like, I asked this question, you said this before, so that's what I'm saying. And I think we might be seeing at least in this phase of them trying to figure this out, the weak link in the chain, which is him, because I don't know, he kind of seems a little shady right now. What's wrong with just telling her what the preference is, and especially sticking to what he had already said, or have an explanation like, oh, well, back then I thought this, or I don't know. It's just starting to look shady to me, but I don't know. It's hard to tell.
These questions came from
You're
my
not
heart.
accepting a lot.
What the do you mean? I'm not accepting
that. No. You're doing 20% out of 100. I'm doing 80.
What are you doing out of 80?
I'll tell you.
Yeah, let me know.
You want me to tell you?
Yeah.
I am 33 years old. I'm an artist. I have plenty more from everywhere in the world, and say no to them, and I say yes to you.
Because you love me. You're not doing me a
Okay,
favor.
if I love you at your age and you love me at my age, do you think you are doing favor for me?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to tell, but why would he be amping up the emotional coercion, or I don't know what word to put to it, emphasis? He's like, how can you do this to me? Out of all the women in the world that I could have had, I decided to be with you, which is a pretty gross thing to say. I mean, just imagine if that's what, in the midst of a real conversation, your partner says that to you, like in response to you saying, well, you said this earlier, so are we going to hold, because that's a boundary for me, that would be difficult for me. And she's dipping into language of I have a say in this matter too, which is true, and they can both define where their deal breaker is, and if they're incompatible, then they're going to break up, right? So anyway, she's being pretty differentiated, pretty fair, and then he's now pulling out these like emotional arguments instead of just addressing the issue. And that's where his mind's, that's how he thinks, is you should be thanking me that. And then she said, well, because you love me, right? Or she didn't say a question, but let's rewind that.
I am 33 years old. I'm an artist. I have plenty more from everywhere in the world, and say no to them, and I say yes to you.
Because you love me. You're not doing me a
Okay,
favor.
if I love you at your age and you love me at my age, do you think you are doing favor for me?
Okay, I mean, it's a really ugly way to say it. There's another way to, I mean, what his point is, like, I'm making a sacrifice to you by being with you because presumably it'd be hard for you to have kids, and so you have to do me this favor by allowing me to be with some. I think he's made that point before, and I think the way he communicates it or the way she interprets it, it's like he's just going to have this surrogate mother for his children, not a full-on wife, and not from the United States. And so, yeah, this would be frustrating if you were hurt. Now, we use this as a jumping off point. So think for yourself about your own experiences in conflict, whether you're in her position or his position. So there are different things to think about in both. One, if you're in her position, you have to try to remain calm and collected, and maybe take a break, come back, stick to a list. She knew to do that sometimes, because that's part, differentiation is the ability to stay on track. It's a lot of different things, but that's one of them, is goal-directed behavior, meaning that the goals and the values that you have in life, you can't get it's harder for you to get derailed from that when you are in a high emotional situation. And one of the ways you can help with that is to keep a list to remind you to do certain things. I mean, maybe more commonly is, say you're heading into a tense conversation with your parents or something, and you might have 3 ideas that you want to get across, and from experience you might get derailed because of fusion and undifferentiation. So you might actually write down 3 different symbols on your hand to remind you or something. Another thing that I worked on with some clients is that if they wore their watch on their other wrist, occasionally they would feel it and they'd be like, why is my, and then, oh, that's right. Okay, calm, deep breaths, don't get entangled, don't get rattled, stay on track. Because if she were to be super differentiated in this moment, I think what she would do is say, okay, I'm getting a lot of weird statements from you right now. I'm a little confused. I feel like you're trying to evade. I don't know. But let's get back to my list. Please answer this question. Are you okay with this? And if yes or no, right? I don't want to hear this stuff like that you could have been with anyone else. Like, that's irrelevant to the point. And that's, now if you're on, so, and the other thing is to know tactics in conflict, or at least common problems in conflict. What he's doing is kind of a class, I don't know if he's doing it on purpose, but it's a classic derailment, a smokescreen, a classic way of getting someone off the topic so that you can end up fighting about something else. And then you have the ability to say, well, let's just agree to disagree. Or she would splash in his face, and then she would end up apologizing for that. And he could continue to avoid having to face the reality, which is, I think, they are incompatible in this area and they can't be together. So I don't know that. Or he's, I guess, if I give him the benefit of the doubt, he's worried about that and can't really deal with it. And so he's derailing because he's scared to lose her. Another way of looking at it is he's just trying to avoid reality because he's trying to trick her into, he's trying to string her along, I guess. So if you're ever in a situation like that where you just feel like the person you're conflicting with or debating with is starting to escalate, and you find yourself getting confused, like, wait, because they'll raise other points, right? Like right now, she's tempted to address that point of just like, wait, so are you with me because of me, or are you with me because of some other reason, like, or do you feel like I owe you now or something? Like I have, yeah, anyway, but that would derail from the conversation that is really important. And she knows that. She knows when she's calm, not around him, that they have to work out this issue. And she even said that, like, there's no use in me meeting your family if we're inherently incompatible. And that's a big question mark in the air right now. So that's why she sat down. So if she could be differentiated, she would return to that. Let's see what she does.
I thought Usman and I have equal love in our relationship. But Usman acts like he is like the prize to be won. And he doesn't understand the sacrifices that I've made in this relationship. And if Usman doesn't understand that, then I don't think this relationship is going to work.
I'm marrying a second wife because I want to have a child.
God help me.
So she can be from America, Jamaica, Europe, Nigeria.
So this might actually be her way of trying to differentiate, trying to calm herself down, trying to recenter. She's like, God help me, instead of engaging. And maybe I would take a guess and say that she had an impulse to engage and get entangled in that, to get angry and hostile, and to argue the finer details of what he's saying. But instead, she's like, okay, I've been down this road before. Don't go down that road. This is frustrating. So I think she's trying to recenter, which is good.
My region.
You can't get to half these places, so why you can't go and have sex with her to have kids anyway?
Kimberly said that she's going to be okay with me having a second wife to have children. And still you want to give me restriction to my own right? And I'm going to take that.
Okay, so 2 points. One, it sounds like she is at the very least trying to recenter, but also still kind of entangled in what he's derailing to. If she were to be super differentiated, she'd be like, okay, we can talk about that later. Let's go back to the list. Now, maybe she thinks that the list is kind of pointless now because he's basically indicating that he wants to do whatever he wants to. He wants to marry someone from the United States, and that's what he's going to do. Then she says, well, you can't even go to those places, so what's the problem? And one, that's not necessarily an issue because he can't go to the States, I think, freely, easily, and it wasn't a problem that, she came to him, so presumably other people might do that as well. But also, it just kind of has that feeling of like, well, I have privilege, or I don't know, it just doesn't really sound very nice. But then he says, she's trying to control me. I'm not going to take that. Like, that's not, I mean, I guess you could interpret it that way, but really what she's trying to do is clarify what the agreement is and also reminding you what you promised her and trying to define what if there is an incompatibility. And then he's saying she's trying to control me. I mean, I don't know.
If Kimberly is going to act like so crazy to me, being so much jealous, my mom will not accept that. I think the meeting is done, right? All right.
Yeah, so he's saying the meetings. So he clearly doesn't want to. If he were really interested in trying to work this out, he'd be like, okay, let's return to our deal breakers, what we want here. So you're saying that you want what? Okay, well, I don't know if I think I want to, he would enter. So he has an approach to this whole thing of say what he thinks she wants to hear, avoid, avoid, avoid. Why is he doing that? I've already proposed the hypotheses that he is afraid of losing her. The other hypothesis is that he just doesn't like conflict. The other hypothesis is that he doesn't really want to be with her and is stringing her along for the show or for something, or I don't know, or hoping that eventually if he gets as far down the road as possible that she'll just give in eventually. I don't know. What do you think?
All right. Well, that's the end of that episode of me talking about that. Sometimes I don't know what to say at the end of the episode. I feel silly saying the same thing every time, so this is me doing a variation on that, I suppose. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.